Good morning or good afternoon or good evening. Welcome to the Natural Capital Value Conversations podcasts. And you'll notice today there are three people here, not just the regular two follically challenged Ben and Benjamin, but we also have a guest on today. We have James Jenkinson from Task Automation joining us. How you going, James?
Good. Thank you guys for having me.
No worry. Absolute pleasure. We're really glad to have you on, and we're excited to talk a bit about you, learn a bit about you, learn a bit about Tusk and what you do, and bring back some of the value of what you do for the industry back to how it impacts natural capital, which I'm sure Benjamin's chomping a bit to talk about. He's been very quiet so far.
Well, I don't really know when I'm allowed to enter because, we don't have a good pause model. But I like the coffee cup. That looks like a good way for me to figure out how to get into the conversation. Whenever you drink, I'll start talking.
Didn't Mark Twain say something about a coffee cup gives a wise man time to think and an idiot something to stick in his mouth?
I live by that mantra. I perpetually have a cup that I drink out of, whether there's anything in it or not.
See, James, you're already adding value and giving pearls of wisdom. That's my thing too. Cool.
It never hurts to go ahead.
Welcome aboard. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I started Task Automation about 11 years ago now. My background is in electrical and automation, primarily on the process side. I'm an electrical technologist, technically. My background has worked in a variety of industries. My first experience with mining was as a teenager living in Alberta, and my girlfriend at the time, her grandfather had struck it rich in the late 70s, early 80s in Sudbury, and was chasing that dream ever since. He owned a couple of penny stock mining companies and was always trying to recreate that strike they made in 78, and funding those operations. And I did a couple summer jobs, helping out and doing weird stuff for whatever drilling program or idea he was trying to raise capital to fund. I don't think any of it ever went anywhere. I don't think any of the plans that were made ever resulted in a single hole being drilled, but the idea was there. Until I think the TSX Venture Exchange eventually just delisted him.
That's an awesome introduction to mining. Sounds like something off Gold Rush, Alaska. That's scary.
Yeah, and he'd done it once, so there was this belief that maybe he could do it again, right? But I think we all chase those dreams, that knowing that was the high point of your life, that was as good as it was ever going to be, and you try to recreate it one more time. After that, I went to school, ended up working in industrial automation. I lived in Alberta for a while, did everything but oil and gas, weirdly enough. Did some coal mine stuff in Alberta, did a bunch of other things, but never oil and gas. When I came back to BC, peripheral stuff around mining, a lot of just electrical and power distribution in the mining space. And then I spent a number of years working at Rio Tinto in Kitimat when they were building the new smelter. And so really cut my teeth on advanced process automation in that space, really challenging automation work, high power work, all of these really interesting things, mostly on the carbon part of the aluminum smelting process, particularly how you make and remake anodes, which is a fascinating process. I'm sure I'm still covered by some kind of NDA, so I'm probably not allowed to actually say how any of that works, but it was very, very cool. Got to work for a bunch of European companies that specialize in that space. And that's where Tusk was kind of born. I ended up being a subcontractor for a while and needed an entity. And then the company sort of grew from there. A lot of Tusk's early works were in some periphery stuff around mining, a lot of explosives manufacturing. We did quite a bit of work with Orica primarily in the chemical process side of their business, the manufacturing side of their business, developing process automation solutions, safety systems with detonator core and a bunch of their other products that they were making. And then over the last 10 years, Tusk really shifted almost completely into pure mining. A lot of mine water treatment, a lot of mine process control. We work with coal, copper, gold, a little bit of silver, but primarily copper and coal. Being in BC, that's kind of our core business.
Have you seen what Apple's done with their new carbon-free aluminum?
I really want to understand how that's possible.
I don't know, but I was just curious because after all, you said that you knew lots of stuff under NDA, so
I
I think
I
you might.
do. I don't see, unless you've come up with unless like all your electricity production somehow you're just buying credits. That's the only thing I could think, right? Like
Well,
at the
so
end of the day, you gigawatts of power to make aluminum. That's how the Pechner process
yeah,
works.
but the power is carbon-free in BC. So the question is the anode. So my question was, what were they doing to change the anode?
And before you answer this, James, you too can come on natural capital value conversations and break NDAs.
Yes.
Benjamin just wants to troll. You just have this innate thing to troll and create mischief, don't you?
It's worth it some days.
I again work for a company whose whole business, like as a contractor, whose whole business is around how anodes are made and remade. A lot of the magic, not just that, but even not just the anode, but even the cathode has a carbon component. So I'm really unsure how it's contrary to the Pechner process, unless there's some other way that you can remove oxygen. Like, how else are you removing that oxygen like from that process? Like, it's
Whatever. It's a fun thing to think about. It's one of those things. Whenever I always ask people this question, no one's given me a good answer yet. But clearly, Rio Tinto and Apple have a plan.
If anyone can do it, it's Rio Tinto.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
okay. Oh, you go, Benjamin.
I don't need to go. You can go.
No, you can go. This is the new age of Ben and Benjamin being polite to each other, not cutting each other off. And as we've got to watch the camera, otherwise Dave will come back and rouse on us. We can't send each other messages telling each other to be quiet. So I will defer to you, Benjamin.
So we know your origin story. What are your clients' problems? What do you solve? What's the fundamental solutions that you provide?
Every mine is weirdly unique. There's so much that is in common, but the things that are different are always really different. A lot of Tusk's history has been around solving some of those like really strange, unique challenges that only that site has. And that ranges from process things to some performance. Some of the weird things that Tusk has done over the years, we built a system for cone crusher gapping so that operators didn't have to go anywhere near the crusher, to allow them to do it remotely from the control cab and monitor all of that. They were buying one of the big crusher OEMs gapping systems that is a pressure-based system. It's got a bladder and then a pressure transmitter that they sink in. And they'd been through like 8 or 9 of the handheld unit because they would invariably drop them, usually in or off the top of the cone crusher. So again, we developed a custom system that allowed them on all 3 of their cones to be able to control them all from the cab, do it automatically. No one had to go up there, no tie-off required, all of those things. It made the whole process a lot safer, and they were really happy with that. We did a system for dosing RFID tags, for ore flow rate tracking. They were trying to optimize they had kind of a distribution box that was diverting flow into 3 of their ball mill lines. And they were having problems with silting up. Velocities were falling. They couldn't, so they wanted to do a bunch of tracking. Somebody sold them a big crate of RFID tags that looked like little pipe bombs, of course. And they had no plan for how they were going to dispense these things, because to do what they wanted, the dispensing tracking had to be very, very accurate. It had to do it exactly when it said it was going to, so they knew to the second what was going on. We built them we called them hot dog dispensers that were designed to dose the tags. But really, like, our core business over the last few years has really been on the process side, anything to do with chemical dosing, reagent dosing, a lot of mine water treatment. The challenge that we find most of our clients have is there's a fundamental gap between the engineering firm that is coming up with an idea and then the actual implementation of that idea, and then the ongoing maintenance of that idea. How was this whole thing taken through the entire project lifecycle into an operating system in a stable state. And that's really the gap that we've come to address. We have approaching things from the automation side. Systems integrators in general, we always are holding the bag to make a thing work, right? At the end of the day, our job is to make someone's dream come true, right? It's to make it whatever the mechanical process engineers thought it was supposed to do, to make it actually do that job. And that gives us something of a unique perspective on what works and what doesn't work. What we come in and what we do is we really try to bridge that gap. We try to fill that entire life cycle and handhold the project all the way past the finish line, and help, right down to the continuous operation of it. We help the client maintain their facility, their tool, whatever that process was we've helped develop, is to maintain it. I think that's the big gap missing in the industry right now, is that there aren't people who view that holistic scope effectively. Everyone's kind of worried about their battery of limits.
So what you're saying is the OEMs come up with really great ideas, but implementations where the ideas fall down. Getting the stuff implemented and ramped and functioning is what you guys is your value add.
That is our value add. I think the industry is interesting right now, speaking particularly from the British Columbia context, where there are a lot of single site junior miners. This is their only project, is this thing that's being built. And that forces a lot of concessions to be made from a CapEx to OpEx financial shuffle, where they're willing to make large sacrifices up front, and we'll sort it out later, right? And one of the big challenges, that sorting out later never really happens. It's hard to get sustaining capital to make those things work in the long run. And there's also just, it requires someone to own it, right? Who can come in and really confidently say, this is how we fix this problem, and have everyone buy into it, be able to free up that sustaining capital. And that's a challenge, but it's something that, I think we provide a lot of value to.
Look, James, you're preaching to the choir with me. I've seen it from an operator side and I've seen it from an OEM side. It's always a challenge, and having someone, and once again, this is talking natural capital already. It's talking people and skills and the right time to come in to understand these complex systems, which, as you know, they've got the process in there, you've got mechanical equipment, you've got the instrumentation and electrical, you've got the coding behind that.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone's got to come in and maintain it and fix it and keep it running. And we just don't keep that many instrument techs, who back early in my career, they were everywhere on mine sites. But of late, there's less and less. We seem to try and do more stuff in this space with less people. So I think having someone like you guys who can come in, manage that process through, and then come back and maintain it, that makes sense to me as a value proposition.
And considering downtime is millions of dollars a day,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't take much for you to make a business case, James. I mean, what, a site might spend $500,000 to $5 million on you. What's your price point?
Yeah, I mean, depending on what we're talking about on the Thickener side, it ranges depending on what they have for existing instrumentation and what can be adapted, whatever, between $500,000 to $1.5 million on a Thickener, Canadian dollars. Again, depending on a wide variety of criteria here as to what's existing and what isn't and what the requirements are, but it's in that realm.
And if the thickener goes down, how many days does it go down for?
Ooh.
I mean, best case scenarios with conversations I've had with plants, a week if they're really lucky, and that's assuming they have the resources to throw humans at mucking it out. If you silt a thickener, I mean, depending how big it is, a high rate, that's 30 feet tall or 40 feet tall, it might take them 2-3 weeks to clean it out.
And can the mine operate while it's not functioning?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, some sites have some redundancy, some sites don't. Some sites think they do. I think thickeners are particularly challenging, especially tailings thickeners. They fall into a weird, on many sites, they fall into a weird space where who is actually responsible for this? On an open pit mine, you'll have a clear delineation between the process plant and the pit. Who owns that tailings thickener? Does it belong to the pit? Does it belong to the mill? Whose maintenance people are responsible for it? On a work order structure, is it a priority item? Right? What now trumps it? If something goes down in the process plant, well, that's definitely going to trump that resource and pull it away from it. A lot of times they're outside, they're cold, they're wet. And so that becomes another issue, is you're obviously going to find something that's a higher priority that's in a warm, dry place. That's how that always works.
So let me
Yeah.
get this right. You're saying the thickener is an unloved piece of equipment that's abused and needs emotional support. And ideally, every thickener on a mine site needs a therapist. I mean, this sounds like.
Yeah,
This
Are you projecting, Benjamin? I'm not sure if we're.
I don't know if I'm projecting right now. I'm trying to understand how much. And you're the therapist that comes in and loves the thickeners and puts on better systems to manage it, so it doesn't go down as much and so it operates better.
The goal is consistency. In any good process control, what you want is consistency. If it's consistent, it can be predictable. Then once you've got consistency, then you can start moving levers to optimize. And in our experience, most of them are fairly inconsistent. There was either flawed concepts in how it was implemented. My pet theory on thickeners is always that it was an idea because it's a very large capital good. It was decided on fairly early, often as early as like in a feasibility study state or a pre-feas of kind of this idea. Whether or not it was actually revised during design engineering, or if that was just carried through, is always questionable. And how much of what the mine's ore body looks like today, 2, 4, 10 years from when that initial engineering was done, how does this all line up? Does this still make sense? And that results in some pretty erratic behavior sometimes. Data sets we've looked at, you see it. During the day, it works okay. And then at night, on night shift, when there's less people, there's less time that can be spent monitoring it, you start to see it wander. And that's when, it's early in the morning. It's like crime. It's early in the morning is when bad things happen.
Well, I totally get you. I would have said the opposite from my experience, but I do understand your argument, James, that early in the morning bad things happen. The reason I love control on thickeners, no matter what flavor of thickener, is they move so bloody slowly.
Mm-hmm.
People like making fast decisions, and people like making, especially in this day and age, I'm Generation X, and I imagine Generation X, next, Y, whatever the latest one is even worse. They just don't have the patience to sit and watch and make a change and come back 6 hours later and make a change. Whereas automation, it can just manage that. And having control on a thickener for me would be a good control, would be an absolute luxury from an operations point of view.
So let's try to take this back to natural capital, since that's what the podcast is about.
Yeah.
So you have gone from everything from cone crushers to now thickeners, and you're focusing primarily on optimizing thickeners. And we're partnering with you to help create value cases for your clients. Why did you want us to create value cases? It was your idea. You approached us. So what were you trying to get out of us to help you?
Honestly, I mean, until you guys kind of prepared some of the numbers, I had a feeling that there was a tremendous untapped value here. It makes a lot of sense, but as you so eloquently described, Benjamin, they are a rented mule. And so they do get beaten by the site in a lot of ways. And because they're sort of out of sight, out of mind, it's really challenging to prepare that value proposition, at least from my perspective. And a lot of our clients, their metallurgy process departments, know they have a problem, but may not be equipped to make that business case. Or time is a huge factor, right? They have very limited amounts of time, and to prepare that business case is just not necessarily in their wheelhouse. And that was the goal, is really to validate my idea first and foremost, that there really is this untapped value there, which I think you guys have done a phenomenal job of proving out, but also be able to help our client show that when they're trying to get funding to do this kind of a project for something that otherwise wouldn't be on people's radars.
So what type of payback are you, based on the work we've done so far, what type of payback are you looking for your clients? Is this a 2-3 year payback? Is this a 6 month, 3 month, 30 days? What do you think?
It's less than 30 days. On on a typical site, what we've looked at so far, that kind of 100,000 ton per day kind of class site, it's days practically. Even on a smaller mine site, it's 30 days to a couple months, right?
So let's break that down from a natural capital.
Yeah, well, sorry, Benjamin, I'll pause you and James there for a sec. We're talking a very specific type of thickener here. We're going to talk about tails thickness today. or say a filter feed thickener, a concentrate thickener, because I think they've got very different value proposition.
Yeah, that's true. We're talking specifically about tailings thickeners here.
Okay, let's just so everyone's listening is clear.
Yeah.
Let's focus on tailings thickening, which is, as you say, the red-headed stepchild. It sort of sits in the middle. It's out of mind, out of sight. If there's a problem, it doesn't necessarily affect the main process that everyone's watching intently, but it can have problems and it can get a lot better.
So your crew comes in, and your crew is going to, in my mind, and tell me if I'm wrong, focus on better utilizing water, energy, and tailings capacity in people. Those are the 4 things that your crew is going to reduce. Can we talk about what?
I think those are byproducts. I mean, they're actually the goal from the client's perspective. I mean, our goal always is, okay, let's achieve consistency in thickener performance. Let's get it doing exactly what it was intended to do as our baseline so that it's doing that all the time. Once we have that baseline, now we can start turning that dial and going, okay, can we improve solids density? Now that we've got it stable at what it's supposed to be doing, now can we push it another 3-4%? Can we take it from 56 to 60? And then that is sort of that phase 2 of that process. And the byproduct from all of that, the real benefit to the client is less people, better water recovery, higher solids going to tailings. Those are, and then obviously all the benefits that come along with those things.
Some of which are non-Newtonian. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, I couldn't resist.
When the finance guy makes a process engineering joke, especially about rheology, you know it's going to be a long day.
With due respect, Ben, I'm the one here with the PhD in engineering, which is hilarious. I'm the only one here who have a PhD in engineering.
Sorry.
But yeah, so what if you can fundamentally increase density at the tailings dam, what's the fundamental long-term driver of that? What are the 2 things you get out of the tailings dam for the privilege of doing that?
This goes a little bit beyond my personal expertise for all clarity here, but there's strong arguments to be made that if you have higher solids going into the dam, then into your TSF, then you improve your overall dam stability. Right? That's the core reality here, is that if it's less water is inherently unstable. That's why we spend so much time dewatering things. Better compaction. There's a long-term potential on mine remediation too. At the end of the day, if you don't have to get rid of all of that water, when you're talking about cleaning up that site, there's huge long-term environmental benefits. And that's really kind of what got us started on this. We've done some work on a couple old orphan mines in the Yukon, and we're still working with them now. And what they have to do in order to remediate the pit, because they can only have, I can't remember what the number is, but it's very, very low. They're only allowed, it's less than 20% moisture content is all they're allowed. Well, now dewatering mountains of old wet, mucky tailings that were put in there back in the 70s and 80s, when they were put in at 60-70% water content.
Was that your uncle or your girlfriend's?
No, this is a company Tusk has been working with. I wish that would be hilarious. He was in Sudbury, so there's probably some environmental.
He didn't make the mess. He made the mess in Sudbury. Okay.
Or Timmins. It was somewhere, but it was in that Ontario kind of gold streak. There's real benefit here to putting less water into your tailings storage facility. And with climate change having the strange impacts it's having, freshet comes on suddenly now. There may not necessarily be more water, but it happens in a much shorter time frame. So there's less time for evaporation. There's all these other things that can raise that level. And it can be a real bottleneck. There's a real process bottleneck here too at the end of the day, that if you can't run at full capacity, either you don't have enough water on the input from your mill on the recovery side, or you simply can't discharge more water without having to treat it into a wet TSF. There's a lot of money attached to how that thickener is doing its job.
Yep. And James, you answered that very well. The better answer would have been, okay, Benjamin, you've got a PhD in mining engineering and specifically tailings. What do you think? But no, That was very good. That was very good. Would you like to add anything, Benjamin?
No, actually, that was a better answer than I would have given.
Yeah, that's
a lot better of an answer than I would have given. I mean, let's be clear here. I'm the pundit.
Let's be clear here. We only invite guests on the podcast who can do a lot better than we do and have better hair.
I don't think that's fair. You guys are pretty good, but I mean, one of the topics we covered too that again is totally beyond my world is the insurance aspect. And it's a very complicated, like you start to get into how the underwriting works of a TSF, particularly for sites that like for minors who don't have the ability to self-insure.
Yep.
Well, you are selling insurance. You are selling real insurance versus financial insurance. Real insurance is always a better deal. I mean, if you have the choice between taking a heart med for $10 a month or buying life insurance for your kids for $400 a month, it's kind of obvious which one's a better deal for your kids.
I'm glad you said better deal for your kids, not better deal for you.
We're all in net present value, future liabilities to our children. Sorry.
Sorry, this is going downhill quickly. But absolutely. Getting your thickener under flow density, if your tailings thickener is going then out to the TSF on whatever flavor of TSF it is, the more water you can pull off that and less water you have to put on that dam, the better.
Yeah, if you're running through, filter presses before for dry stack, anything like that too. I mean, there's massive energy costs here. And again, we do a lot of mines that are in places that are power poor, right? And have to look at every kilowatt of energy that they're consuming. Especially with diesel prices now, where we're north of $2 a liter. Their sites operating now with $1 a kilowatt hour, right? Is their power price on diesel. They're looking at every option to how they can save that energy. And a thickener is the cheapest way to remove water from anything. I mean, there's no cheaper way to get water out of solids.
I don't know if you've asked my mother. Sorry, there was a joke there, but we won't go there.
Oh my gosh.
I thought it was going to be fun.
Benjamin will be appearing at the open mic night in somewhere.
I've done that.
I know, and I'm thinking of sending you back there so you don't have to crack rheology jokes on the podcast.
At least you have a lovely person to crack rheology jokes. You have a traditional finance person who doesn't have a sense of humor. I mean, let's be clear about that. Okay, so you basically have a device. You're going to come in. You're going to fine tune these pieces of equipment that are not loved. You're going to create control systems. You're going to show back up 4 or 5 times a year, and on the net, your goal is to get performance up slightly and stable. How bad can it? I've seen some of these logs. I mean, am I wrong to say that a thickener that's operating at, let's say, 52% average can go down to 38% some night shifts and up to 62% some day shifts? And it's, I mean, the deviation is just that massive. Is that accurate, or am I reading them wrong?
It can be. It's rare, but it can be. It all depends on what their feedstock looks like. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the deviation, when it often happens, Benjamin, I think you might get that lower deviation more freely than you get the high one because, as James was talking about before, operators are really terrified of bogging this thing. So getting too high solids and then having to dig the thing out. So I think there is a lot of deviation. I think that's where James is going, but it's definitely skewed to the wetter end.
It is. What you'll see typically is a fairly hard sealing that they bounce off of. There's a tremendous amount of momentum typically found in underflow density. So that memory lasts, that bed memory. And so you'll see it. What will happen, it'll be negligence. Like, not negligence, it'll be somebody who wasn't paying attention, or they did something upstream that no one realized. And then they panic and overcorrect. And so sometimes they'll just puke a ton of flocking to try to bring it up, and then they'll overshoot and they make a big snot donut. But yeah, the normal trend, what I'm used to seeing, is a fairly hard sealing that they bounce off of, unless there is a catastrophic event in the data set where they've totally silted the thing up and now it turns into a snot ball.
which goes back perfectly to what you said, what happens at 3 a.m. in the morning. I myself, from my operating days when I was on a crew, might have been guilty of sitting at that control panel and drifting off to sleep between about 2 and 3 in the morning. It hits. And this is the kind of thing that happens. And then, oh crap, I've got to fix this.
And then the problem doesn't really show up, or the problem that you've tried to correct now hits you 4 or 5 hours later. Because of that delay. It depends on the thickener size and what their flow rates are and a bunch of other things, but there's a significant lag in there before you really see, and it'll often keep getting worse. It's why a lot of control systems don't handle rheological processes very well because of there's a horribly nonlinear response. It's inconsistently nonlinear. It can be quite erratic. And there's a significant amount of memory and momentum in the change. So it's hard for conventional loop controls and things like that to do a good job of balancing it.
Okay, so now that we've scared off anyone who's not into thickeners, what are you offering them, James? How can you help people? And what do you offer about me and Ben's time? How are you selling us to your clients or your future clients?
I think one of the big issues here is making that business case and helping the people on site make that business case. The process engineers and metallurgists on site know what the problem is, and they know it can be better. They know it needs to be better. They don't have the wherewithal to be, that's not fair. It's not the wherewithal. They don't have the resources to be, I sounded like Benjamin there. I was channeling my inner Benjamin. The wherewithal to get that done. And what we engage B2 for is to help make that business case, to make financial models that show what that real return on investment is, how short it really is, how necessary it is to improve that performance, how it can really unlock a tremendous amount of natural capital on a site. Specifically, when we're talking about tailings thickeners here, the amount of natural capital available that is sitting there for a relatively low investment.
You got water. You've got tailings risk reduced. You've got tailings volume reduced, hopefully.
Yeah.
And people, your people can do something better because the tailings thickener's running happily with the control system.
And you have a substantial reduction in weighted average cost of capital. You're fundamentally going to reduce your long-term cost of capital on site because you're insuring against the largest risk with a very naturally easy to explain method of insurance.
Do you think, Benjamin, that you could explain that to your insurance auditor who comes to site looking at that, if you're the plant manager?
We had coffee with one. What do you think, Ben?
No, I think you can. I don't think it's that hard to sell. Explaining simple terms, and you don't have to get all highfalutin, as you said before. It's a natural insurance option. Hey, shouldn't our premium be less? Look what we did. Tusk came and installed this, and our percent solids going to that tailings dam has gone up 2% in the last 12 months. So there's less water, less risk. What do you think?
But you also get a fundamental revaluation for the market because you're fundamentally going to change the risk profile of the single largest uninsurable risk to the equity holders. There's absolutely the underlying risk that's really here is if that tailings dam fails because your thickener was pumping slop to the dam, that is $1 billion failure. That is an uninsurable risk, and James is selling risk to it. So James, how do people get us to do their modeling for them? What do they have to do? What's the secret sauce to engage us in this instance? Because it's not directly through us.
So this is us as B squared.
As B squared, yeah. I mean, please reach out to us. You can contact us at tuskautomation.com. Reach out to us. We will ask you for a bunch of data. We need to see 60 to 90 days of underflow data. We want some drawings. We may want to do a site audit depending on the level of complexity. And then as a group, we'll all sit down and we'll start going through these models.
Okay. And then what do they get?
So at the end of the day, you will get a copy of that financial model that they can play with as their heart's content. They can plunk in their own numbers. They can argue with your numbers, my numbers.
A lovely report card.
A lovely report card.
I just happen to have it.
To be fair, I'm not going to give them the model. I'll give them the outputs. And they can
it's a simplified, yeah. It's the output of the model. But we can all argue about numbers. And at the end of the day, we will prepare a detailed custom proposal for what an implementation would look like on their site.
So initially we give them the model, they decide they want to do implementation, you guys do an implementation, and then who do we work for? Just for disclosure on this, just so it's very clear.
Yeah, you guys are working for us in the creation of these models. So B2 is contracted by Tusk Automation to create these report cards.
So they could be biased.
That's fair.
Yeah, just it's disclosure. The numbers are so smart. Even if we bias them, we're going to take it from a 30-day payback to 26 days. It really doesn't matter. I mean, the margins are staggering on this. So this is a situation where directionally the IRR is well over 100% on any of these things, and in some cases approach 1,000%. So it's kind of terrifyingly good numbers.
So the moral to this story is, if you have a tailings thickener that you think needs some TLC and some decent control on it, and there's some gains that can be had, come talk to James and his team, and they will not only talk to you about the solution, but they can come to B Squared because they contract us, and we'll build a value proposition that you can look at and tweak the numbers in and take up the chain.
I'll take it one step further. If you have a tailings thickener, because we are a freebie from James's perspective, since James has bulk purchased us, we highly recommend, since we get paid either way, that you go talk to James about our modeling. Because after all, we'd like to sell more models versus less. So you can get some free financial advice purely by talking to James or Heather. So I mean, look at that as a deal. Not to be silly.
No, there's real value in it. And again, it was eye-opening for me, right? The level of, again, as like I said, I had this instinctive feeling that there was a tremendous amount of untapped natural capital here. And then the numbers that you present, which from all of the feedback that we've gotten from them, that I've seen you guys get as well, are very defensible numbers. They're all within the realm. It's a way bigger number than what I ever envisioned it would be, right? I mean, when you're talking about on a typical site that we're looking at, I mean, it is $1 billion. It's a ridiculous amount of MPV available here.
Well, in the water scarce site, let's be clear, that's a Chile.
Yeah, absolutely. An Chilean water scarce site.
BC is the $100 million range, but still $100 million bucks, $500,000 to $1.5 million of investment is.
Yeah, even if you're off by half.
You keep your billion. You keep your billion, Benjamin. Just give me the 100 million. I'll be happy. I won't complain.
Yeah. The savings on one optimization retires me for the rest of my life, or 3 lifetimes, or 5 lifetimes. So
and buys you some good karma.
And we're doing good for the environment, so it's good stuff. Well, thank you for being on here, James.
Thank you, guys.
Anything else you want to throw onto this?
He's been well behaved. I thought I was going to chirp in and say something like thickeners are boring and upset all the thickener people again. If you don't like the fact I said thickeners are boring, or if you'd like to make them more boring, ring James and Tusk and get them to sort out your control system so you can just let it sit there and settle away.
Good automation should always be boring. You should just never notice it if it's doing its job right. That's the dream.
That's a really nice way of putting it. Cool.
Have you trademarked that?
No, feel free to steal it.
You should put that on your website. I mean, that's a really good tagline. On that note, cool. We've been going on for a few minutes now, so we will talk to you all.
Yeah, thank you all for listening to Natural Capital Value Conversations. We hope this was informative for you. We're really happy that James came on, and we'll be having other guests come on and talk about different parts of the industry and how we can improve what we do and better make utilization of our natural capital. So, any questions, drop them on LinkedIn, drop them under the videos when they get launched on whatever your favorite podcast platform is, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.